Firstly, let me welcome everybody here to HIMSS Asia Pacific. I believe this is the fourth year, and I thank HIMSS for letting us sponsor the booth here and letting us be present at this wonderful occasion. The way I see the universe in healthcare and life sciences, I see them as three trends. So the first trend is what I call operational efficiency. And within that first trend, you have things like the cloud, virtualization, and there's a very specific area within healthcare and life sciences which we call generic HPC, or high performance computing. The second trend is infrastructure. Within the infrastructure, you have three subcomponents: transactional performance, available archive, and a service-based connection to application layer and metadata. The final one, the third trend, is understanding information and connecting to it, which we call analytics, mobile, and social. And I think EMC describes this really well as Platform 3. And we have various different products and divisions within this federation. EMC, of course, information infrastructure, RSA, which is a security piece, VMware, and Pivotal. My division, which is the Emerging Technologies Division, initially started with two areas, media entertainment and life sciences. And within the life sciences space, we've had some fairly neon light type genomic centers. The first one is, of course, Broad Institute out of Boston, Cambridge, Massachusetts. The second is BGI Shenzhen, formerly called Beijing Genomics Institute. And the third is one of the, or the largest manufacturer in genome sequencing instruments called Illumina. In the last 15 years, it was more the research space. And within the last 2 or 3 years, it has migrated to becoming more population scale genomics and combining that with healthcare. I'll give you some fun tidbits for this afternoon. The first one is take the length of one person's DNA and stretch it out. It's about 2 meters. Now if you combine all the cells in one person's DNA, that length put together end to end is 10,000 crossings of the solar system. That is just one person. Now, if you put all the people on Earth end to end, that is a staggering 100 crossings of the Milky Way. Now, you remember, Milky Way is 100,000 light years across. So, just understanding the scale of things, people talk about big data, but just within each of us and within our population, we have the biggest big data sets available. So, understanding this level of information at population scale is the holy grail. We all heard the Deputy CIO for the Ministry of Health of Singapore talk some very specific points about the aging population of Singapore. This is a general trend across the world. Very specifically for Asia Pacific, there are, most of the countries, the population below 25 years old is about 30%. But in two specific countries, they are almost 50%. One country is India and the other country is Malaysia. So you have to balance who pays for the aging population, and I think that was mentioned as well. The other issue is infectious disease. And I'm sure you guys have heard about SARS and MERS, which is the respiratory syndrome. These are all viral diseases. And within the aging population, chronic disease, heart disease and hypertension, things like that are becoming more and more important to solve at a population scale. The other two parts I will add to this is safety, and very specifically food, water, and population scale safety. And again, another fun tidbit here. If you take the diameter of a virus, which is about 100 nanometers across, if you put all the viruses on Earth end to end, that length is also 100 crossings of the Milky Way, which again is 100,000 light years across. So we harbor viruses and bacteria within us, and the whole issue of how you separate the good ones from the bad ones is the data level issue for the future. I live in the US, I live in Seattle, Washington, in the United States. In the US, this is a scary statistic. In the US, more than 50% of healthcare records have been breached in the last 1-2 years. Just in the last year, from 2013 to 2014, the number of hacks or the number of penetrations of networks within healthcare have increased 100%. The other issue that has to be really focused here is what I call AIMA. A stands for access control, IM stands for identity management, and the last A stands for authorization. So how do you build systems that encompass these very specific requirements? Doug Frisma, who used to be at the ONCHIT, Office of National Coordinator of Health Information Technology in the US, who is now the president and the CEO of the American Medical Informatics Association, made a very elegant statement. And the statement was, information moves at the speed of trust. So you have to have trusted information first. And generally, it has to be a policy level issue, and also encryption, both at rest and on in-flight. And EMC has products that actually encompass that.
Now, what issues in telemedicine do you hope to address in the coming years? And what is EMC's outlook for telemedicine just for the next 2 to 3?
Actually, telemedicine also is the other holy grail. If big data and analytics and mobile technologies are one part of the equation, the sheer size, volume, complexity, stickiness of big data is very important. Telemedicine is the other holy grail here. So most people still live in fairly rural areas, and for countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, where it's very hard to have local care, remote care becomes very, very important. Very fun statistic here. The number of CT scans or computer tomography scans in radiology have increased 25-fold within the last 10 years. In the US, the predicted market, so in the US, telemedicine is about 1/4 of all health information technology. And is valued at about $20 billion in 2020. The other part of the equation here is connected devices. We all talk about Internet of Things. Very specifically in healthcare, we will have something like 80 million connected devices. Out of the universe of about 50 billion devices that will be there in 2020. 50 billion, B as in billion. So how do you integrate all these images and all the information that come from the devices? I'll give you 3 very quick use cases that EMC has worked on. And these are 3 healthcare institutions. The first one is Sydney Adventist Hospital. They had to manage this exploding scale of images. Tokushima University. How do you combine both clinical and research use cases? And finally, Harvard Medical School. I mean, you have to build a base in what we call picture archiving and communication systems, and there's a new area called vendor-neutral archive. So these are the 2 areas in telemedicine that have to be the base for the future. This is probably the hardest challenge for the future. Healthcare is a very complex system with respect to information technology, and there are 2 words that are used quite often in healthcare and life sciences. One is integration, and the other is interoperability. And within these areas, I think both in the US and there's actually a course at the HIMSS Asia Pacific Conference. The course is called FHIR, or FHIR. FHIR stands for Fast Healthcare Interoperability Resource, if I can say it right. The other areas within the interoperability space are how do you authorize at scale? And so there are open standards like OAuth 2 and OpenID, for example. And as you get into the telemedicine space, the speed of the network connections start becoming more and more important. And you are seeing infrastructures that have 100 gigabit per second Ethernet networks, like Internet 2. So Internet 2 has another security feature called in common. So we have to understand both the pipeline and how do you secure that pipeline for the future. EMC, I jokingly tell people that EMC is a 65,000 person startup. And our goal is now to innovate as quickly as the world moves around us. That's the first issue. The second issue is to think global but act local. And the third issue I will leave with, other than the fun facts I've mentioned today, is 3 books for your viewing audience. The first book is called The Hot Zone. It's the story of Ebola. It's a fantastic read. It's a little graphic in some areas, but understanding this whole issue of infectious disease. The second book that I will recommend is called The Violinist's Thumb. This is about this is one specific story about Paganini and many other stories in genetics. Paganini used to have flexible fingers like I do, and he could play frets that nobody else could because he had the flexible fingers, and that is a genetic issue. The third book I would recommend to your viewing audience is called The Neanderthal Man. And the basic story for that is, who are we as humans, and the history of our story as humans. So that's what I would leave you for some fun things.